I'm going to operate. Hi, now I'm here. Hi, chat room. Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Now I'm here. Now it's a real show. Look at that. Hey, look at that.
Look at that.
Oh, somebody's crunchy. Is that you? That you being all
Yep.
crispy? That all
Yep.
being crunchy cream? Move this up here out of the way. So I have show notes for today. You should be able to see them.
Uh-oh.
Some breaking news,
Let me
kind
go
of
look.
important, kind of a thing.
Okay.
But I will say, hi chat room, hi everybody. Welcome.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Here we
can I
go.
please have
Let's
your
start.
attention? And I need all of you to stop what you're doing and listen.
Now, live from Chicago, the Hal Sparks radio program Mega Worldwide.
I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass.
Hal Sparks, actor, comedian, and multimedia personality.
And I'm all out of bubblegum.
Hal Sparks.
All right, let's do this.
Okay, wait for it, Johnny Million. Not yet. Timing. Now, some people ask me occasionally, what is the key to comedy, Hal? And one particular person asked me that 3 years, 7 months, 5 days, and 13 hours and 5 minutes ago. And that was the perfect time to answer the question in the funniest way possible. Hopefully they're listening. And it's been a while, but if you get it, you get it. And I would argue that, excuse me, I have a cat here. I would argue that timing isn't just important in comedy. Oh, no. I would argue, you would say as a musician, I'm a musician as well. Johnny Million's a musician. Johnny, I would believe, say that timing is crucial.
Oh, very crucial. It's better to have feel than shred.
That's right. There you go. So timing, when you hit the notes, almost as important as which note is hit.
John Schultz just did a super chat and said, "Hal watches right-wing lunatics, so we don't have to."
That's exactly right. That is currently my gig, people.
Yeah.
So timing also very important, I would guess, in politics, right?
Yeah,
Sometimes a policy that would have won you support before a certain other event will lose you support after that event, not for any reasons that have to do with the policy or even you as a politician, but simply because the tide has changed or people have a different attitude about an idea temporarily. You might even wait 6 months and it'll go back to the other way it was, and your timing, if you announce something then, would be fine.
Are you talking about your stance on prohibition, Hal?
Yes, as the last living teetotaler in the world that isn't forced by his religion to participate in something, who just does it for the sheer joy of it. Maybe, perhaps. I have been, but I believe only in terms of alcohol prohibition. I only believe in very localized prohibition.
Sure, right. Extremely.
Yeah, that starts at your mouth and ends at, I suppose, wherever it comes out, in whatever capacity. So whether you sweat it out or it ends up in a urinal, it's between you and your urinal, I think, is the decision-making process.
Yeah.
That said, thank you, John Schultz, for the super chat. Awesome. Timing is also crucial in the awareness of, let's say, a threat is possible, right? And you're trying to... the Biden administration has been struggling with a couple of these things, trying to do a reset with Russia and Iran early in the presidency, trying to stabilize with them, give them one last chance on the merry-go-round of, friendly ties. Let's do this. We'll let you see with that Nord Stream. What are you going to do with that Nord Stream? Oh, you're going to do terrible things. Never mind. Okay, we're done. Iran, want one more shot at the deal to not make nukes and be able to trade? No? You're just going to keep sponsoring terror and trying to kill everybody? Okay, well, pass. At least we gave you that one last chance, right? But the timing of it, can be used as political fodder against him, and has been, Trump, that I totally shut down the pipeline and you never even heard of the pipeline. You ever heard of Nord Stream? What he means is Nord Stream 2, because Nord Stream 1 was already in existence, and Nord Stream 2 was just a bigger version of it.
I never really went to Nord Stream. Sometimes I go to Nord Stream Rack.
Yeah, that's true. Well, that works with you and I both because we have one arm longer than the other. And so outlet stores are designed for me.
Right
Also,
on.
one more second. Timing. A friend of his, that guy asked me a couple of minutes later, and that happened earlier. Anyway,
Oh my God.
so we know very well. And welcome to the show, by the way. You're listening to Hal Sparks radio program, Megaworldwide, now with 100% more Johnny Million. And oh my God, Hal Vickery, thank you with the super
Hal
chat.
Vickery's
Your
unreal.
timing is impeccable. Methinks she does protest too much. But so we know that Donald Trump has terrible timing.
Oh wait,
and that
somebody's
some of his
looking for your Venmo thingy, Hal. I'm sorry to jump in, but where's your QR code?
it's not. It is not popped up on this particular scene. I will put it in. At some point.
Yeah,
I'll
that
apologize.
vanishes on
yeah.
me too all the time.
Yeah. I will get it up in the show at some point, and we'll be able to do it. Now, here's the thing: Donald Trump, for those of you that don't remember, started just jettisoning anything in his first year and a half in office that had Obama's name attached to it. And that he couldn't
That was his prime
co-opt, by the way.
directive.
Yeah, but he co-opted the VA Choice Act of 2014, claimed it as his own, said he signed it into existence, that they've been trying to do it forever and were unable to do it, even though it was signed into law by Barack Obama in 2014. And he gets to sign updates to it like every president would, because they have to, you have to review it, extend it, add on to it. It has provisions within it to do that. And he thinks that because he did the rubber stamp regular work of being a president, that he invented it. It's fantastic. But the rest of the stuff, he was just kicking to the curb, right? Two of those things, almost at the exact same time. The COPS program, which the Obama-Biden White House had put in place so that it would help states and counties and municipalities who are trying to get rid of bad cops to be able to do that without having to scuttle their entire police force in the process or throw the whole thing into chaos. You could, if you have some bad apples, you can pluck those bad apples out and chuck them. And that was, crucially, had it been in place when George Floyd was taken from this earth, the person who he may still be alive, and the person who did it may have never even made it to that point. They would have never met up at that particular junction in time. The other one was, of course, the pandemic response team. And curiously enough, almost 2 years to the day of him removing both of these programs, here comes this bus that any idiot could have seen coming down the highway and smacks into the American people at the same time. So we got the George Floyd riots and the horrible response to the pandemic, including, by the way, Operation Warp Speed, which is his program apparently to make all of his supporters constantly aware of their own paranoid feelings that the vaccine was rushed. When you have in your own electorate, right? That if their biggest worry.
So he's decided that the benefit of getting the vaccine to the public is not good enough. Now he has to say, like, careful. I don't know if that was in the oven long enough.
Right. Well, he points out regularly that this was done at a completely unsafe speed in terms of how you feel. Warp speed, technology we don't have. That literally, the irony of that particular name for the vaccine process is, part and parcel to why his own followers were more likely to die from COVID than Democrats or, I suppose, centrist independents or anybody else who isn't a maggot in particular. Because they felt like it was rushed. They were worried. There weren't enough tests done. This is all these thoughts, and I can't imagine why people whose God King, bloviating circus peanut with fiberglass for hair,
Wow,
calling his thing warp speed would make them feel that way. But he did both of those things, and never mind all the other things he did with COVID that were a mess. He did both of those both those things hit at the same time. And you could track them 2 years earlier to look, if you undo these things, there's going to be consequences. And the amazing timing of Donald Trump's life as a long-term loser who I don't know how he does it, but he manages to cross the streams on everything. Somehow he's like a rake-seeking missile. He just will, he's like Juggernaut, just walking in one direction, and he will not stop until he hits a rake, and then he will turn in the direction
Juggernaut
of
is so
another.
much cooler than I thought he was.
Do what?
Juggernaut.
Oh, Juggernaut? Yeah, no, he's it's somewhere between Terminator and a psychotic murderer who can't be stopped. It's a terrible, terrible thing. But anyways, read the Madam Web Spider-Man comics. You'll see what I mean. But point being is that Donald Trump has made yet another horrible mistake in letting his ego choose the timing of something he wants to happen, and has wound the key in his own back and set himself marching towards a terrible rake.
Oh no.
And I'm going to tell you about it right after the break. It's the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide on WCPT Radio, Chicago's Progressive Talk. Like, subscribe, go to infotainmentwars.com. Patreon.com/Hal Sparks is our way of staying on the air. And of course, you can buy nice merch like my Motang shirt, which if you don't know,
or my Johnny Million hoodie.
There you go. I want one. We'll be back. Trade you.
Yeah, I got to send you one.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you, Bobby. Look at Bobby hitting us with the super chat.
Thank you. Thanks, Bobby.
Oh, by the way, I think I've shown you this before, but
I make a great second impression. Back it up a little bit. The way not many people know that. I see. That's good. Sure. I like it. Sure, like it. Now, let's see. Studio mood.
And it's shopjohnnyMillion.com, people. ShopjohnnyMillion.com.
Shop JohnnyMillion.com.
Oh, that doesn't work without a... You got to put the dub in here?
In where?
In the chat.
Oh yeah, well, for it to show up as a link, I think.
Yeah.
Have we modded you to make sure that you can?
Yeah, I'm moddy.
Good. Okay.
Yeah, I'm doing something wrong.
Well.
Yeah, I needed to get a hoodie because it's so chilly. Thank you.
Hold on, let me see. This is gonna look.
Robin,
like
I think I have like 12 or 13 guitars.
Right. Hold on. Let's see if I can make this happen. You and I are in the same space. I do not like how this looks, but what are you gonna do?
Hal, do you have one of the? Do you have a 12-string bass?
Yes, I do.
Do you have the Doug one?
No.
I have the Doug one. Which 12-string do you have?
I have the knockoff, like Carlos Ribonetti, whatever.
Yeah. God, those were everywhere for a while. I almost pulled the trigger on that.
It sounds great.
Yeah.
Thank you. I want to change the pickups out, but that's a big process.
It is.
Oh, welcome back to the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide.
All right, if you've had the misfortune of being in a situation where you've had to hear one or more of Donald Trump's speeches in Iowa or New Hampshire about why people in Iowa and New Hampshire should vote for him. Number one is his primary one apparently is, I bribed you with money after I wrecked your entire livelihood in my tariff war with China to end up getting nothing from it. Let me put this in terms people can understand. The Trump trade deal with China was the Speaker Mike Johnson of trade deals. He went from the nothing to nothing. Same thing. It didn't pay off. It was a big, tumultuous to-do. It was a mess. and it cost a lot of farmers their livelihoods. So one of the ways he was trying to get himself out of that hole was to effectively bribe him. And there's an argument to be made that he negotiated with China in the devaluation of their currency and a bunch of other things to basically like feed him some money so that he could give it to farmers in this process while they worked this out. And they were like, if you give us this other stuff later, which is military hardware, which he was looking the other way on, we'll get over this agricultural thing with you. Never mind the fact that, and I don't know how everyone in his cabinet seemed to miss this point, is that China imports 80% of their foodstuffs. They have 14% of their farmland is still functioning. They need every grain of wheat and every rice, every piece of rice they could find. They desperately need it. So the idea that they're going to buy a certain amount is just a foregone conclusion. So the idea of muscling them into buying more is just dumb. So that whole process happening, that was the one big thing he'll do.
Mrs. Million sneeze from across the house. Could you hear her?
No, I didn't hear it.
Oh, it was amazing.
Was it?
Is
it a big?
She'll sneeze like 15 times in a row. I feel bad for her.
Is it like a high pitched situation?
It's a scream sneeze.
Oh, okay, yeah. Mine sound like a cab misfiring. It's the butchest thing about
cute.
me.
I remember.
Thanks. So number one,
Thanks.
his number one reason for Iowa and why they should vote for him is you're all farmers, you bunch of hayseeds. And I bribed you dummies, so you owe me. That's it. Like, I bought your vote with $28 billion. It is the most crass political, like, talk about say the quiet part loud. The other reason he says, and he says this in New Hampshire and he says it in Iowa, first in the nation. I made you first I kept your first in the nation status. It's a tradition. Many people say it's a tradition, and it's a tradition that you say. So I kept that first in the nation status, and I'm going to keep that first in the nation status as long as Trump, I'm your president. I remember who kept you guys first in the nation. Well, guess what, dummy? This Monday, the temperature in Iowa is going to be, it's predicted at negative 17 degrees. And
Jeez and crow.
Yeah, and the Trump campaign is scrambling to pick up the slack because, interestingly enough, for people to show up at the caucuses, because oddly enough, DeSantis and the people who are leaning towards Nikki Haley live closer to town. They're the kind of folks who have businesses and live somewhere close to town. They live in town. They have relatively normal businesses. They, work at Ford, manage a Target. They, work downtown in Des Moines or something like that. And Trump's biggest caucus supporters live in the sticks. They live in the flatlands. They live out where it's like, and we've done those drives, Johnny Million. You and I have been many times driven those guys, and his supporters live out in those places. And so their trek to the caucus, at least a third of his supporters might get snowed in. And there's a big panic going on. And this all boils down to Donald Trump wanting to have the bragging rights to the first in the nation status that they're giving. The picture in this Associated Press article is glorious. It looks like a town in Oskaloosa, Iowa, like struck an iceberg.
Yeah. That looks rough.
Yeah, they're talking about negative 25 to somebody in the chat room saying negative 33 with the wind chill. Oh my God. During the caucuses, because again, in this situation, I'm just saying, and New Hampshire's, it's just as cold there too. And I got to tell you, I think there's kind of something smart to, in a months long process, something that can take weeks and weeks to get through all the primaries. Maybe, just maybe, since it starts in winter, start in the areas that have the least amount of winter, and then follow the thaw, as it were. that it might be better for the folks in that region to be last in the process. Maybe one day it'll be like, right, nail it down at the tail end of it. Everybody counts on those last few votes, and they're scrambling for them, and it means a lot. So best for last, New Hampshire and Iowa or something, and we start in New Mexico and Nevada and California and Oregon, even though, again, the western part of Oregon, the western part of Washington State, where the Democrats are favored, and I guess maybe more centrist Republicans would be. Again, their weather's fine, but the eastern parts of those states are being hit by the same stuff that's making it negative 75 in North Dakota. So, anyways, another example, if I may, of the absolute crap timing of Donald John Trump. If there's a situation where he can fail on the merits, he'll do it. If there's a situation where he can fail on...
He's got that down.
Yeah, right. But if the system is weighted to even protect someone like him, which it always has been, like rich New Yorkers in the real estate market have always there's this bubble around them because, quite frankly, to boost this, they have the same problem in New York that they have in London, for example, that all this sketchy money comes in. And if you're willing to partner with awful people, the LLC process will hide your secret money men. Mm-hmm. And it's the worst people that end up partnering with these guys, and the worst people really that end up getting ahead.
That really is such a huge part of why we are still hearing about Donald Trump, because he is willing to partner with the worst possible people. He has sold whatever you would call a soul over and over and over again. He doesn't care. He does not care.
Yeah, if he could have, I guess, Trump Tower Pyongyang, he'd have it in a heartbeat. No, he doesn't care. As long as he could fake the vacancy rate on a loan application for another tower, it does not matter.
Yeah.
And interestingly enough, so we're going to get used to him losing in court for a couple of reasons. One, he deserves to, but not everybody who deserves to lose in court ultimately does. Our presumption of innocence being there, a lot of people who are guilty as hell end up not going to jail for stuff because the preponderance of evidence has to point towards guilt, and the reasonable doubt rule does and should exist. And in civil court, he can offer up watery, floaty, I was thinking something else kind of arguments in pushback against, his E. Jean Carroll case, or against the election workers in Georgia or something like that, right? He can push back like, that's not what I meant. I said a different he. And even though he's lying, it's really hard to pry that loose. And so, the courts are already leaning that way. But Donald Trump lost a case and was ordered to pay legal fees this week.
Oh yeah, this is awesome.
This is pretty awesome. And the best part about it, and somebody was, he's got to pay
the New York Times because they told the truth that you don't like.
Right. And you sued the New York Times, and because they were after you, which is just so weird. This is a guy, by the way, who manipulated.
I bet those people would give anything to not think about Donald Trump.
Yes, absolutely. There's so much, all the news that's fit to print and the stupid stories we have to print because Donald Trump is a thing.
Bingo.
So he has to pay $392,638 in legal fees because his lawsuit was thrown out.
Oopsies.
And the grounds for his loss, I gotta say, is the best part about it. The fee
that's a
is
great
nice.
Picture too.
Oh yeah, totally, with his hair flying up like the bill cap of a podunk hat. Like he's got.
Yeah, it looks like he really broke in that hat. He's got the bill nice and rounded.
Yeah, you got the bill, and you just flap it up top and go.
That's his rally cap.
Yeah. Well, what I think it is a bypass line. You know what I mean? Like that. So
it's all ball bearings these days.
Hey. So the best part about this is not the money that he has to pay, which he does not have. And he will,
Nope.
he has to do it. I don't think he's going to be able to appeal this because he lost. The case was thrown out. So this ruling, if you lost on the merits and it wasn't worthwhile in the first place and was seen to be frivolous and a waste of everyone's time, there's no way you go for another bite at the apple with legal fees without getting court costs thrown in, right? So, but the best part about it, the judge deemed that the reporting from the New York Times was protected by the First Amendment. That's right. And yes, in a right in an absolute rake stomp. No. It was like that paper towel ad. I can't seem to escape.
Paper towel ad.
Yeah. Oh God. Yes. That's a little scary, but also a little adorable. So,
sorry, I'll lighten up.
That's much better.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the fact that Donald Trump has to pay legal fees for a frivolous case that he filed to violate the First Amendment, to attempt to deny an American newspaper their First Amendment rights. I mean, come on. There's, some of the timing was just, while these guys are wailing about cancel culture and the cancel culture, here he comes to try and violate the First Amendment, and it costs him almost a year of presidential salary. Boy, I bet he's wishing he kept it now, which he did.
They really don't get it. Like they
Nope.
think that between the first and the fifth, or no, the first and the second, that they are golden. And it's just not the case. They
Nope.
don't like the ramifications of most of those things.
Not at all. Yeah. We got to take a break. When we come back, more of Johnny Million's remarks. I don't want to cut him off too much because he got more to say on that. We'll be back right after this. It's the House Sparks Radio program, Mega Worldwide. All right.
Do you mind if I whip out my guitar when we come back? Just
Not at
'cause
all.
I got the Johnny Million shirt on.
I know.
Look, I don't even need a what do they
Crass
call it?
commercialism.
Cryon?
It's like I have my own Donald Trump.
I'm your Donald Trump.
Well, because crass, like self-serving, promotion.
Oh yeah, that's me.
That part of it. Yeah. It's a little more like Gene Simmons, I would say. It's not. I don't want
Yeah.
Gene to think
But
we didn't
boy, are
learn
they
anything.
close. Boy, are they close.
But they differ in a couple of very important ways. Because I would like to say, for all the stuff about Gene and his relationships and all this kind of stuff, only married once.
Yeah.
This just saying. Of all people, he decided to do it. Yeah, there we go. Oh, that's an echo.
Yeah, I don't need all that delay right now.
Mm-hmm. Right. Mm-hmm.
Johnny, would you ask Philip to translate a poem from the Ukrainian poet that lost his wife in the war? I can ask, but Philip knows Russian better than Ukrainian.
Right.
Oh yeah. Oh wait, since it's just us.
Now where's mine? Well, by the way, we are live streaming, so you'll end up getting me. You'll end
Oh
up
no.
getting me. Yeah,
Are we about
wait.
to get you copyright hit?
Yes. I hate that.
Oopsies.
Nope.
1 minute. Caleb actually came on my stream the other day to watch.
Oh, that's great.
God, that guy's so good.
Yeah.
He's so
rocks
good.
out. It's a little crazy. like I said, is on the spectrum. His needle peaks at Eddie. It just goes dink. I'm like,
Yep. And what's funny is he did a rig rundown of his own rig, and my his rig is so similar to mine. I was like, oh my god, we came to the same
that's
conclusions.
so wonderful. I mean, God,
Like the little power amp, that Seymour Duncan power amp that he uses.
Yeah.
I use it at every
Back
show.
in 15.
Oh,
Thank you.
you. Boom.
Attention, attention, stop what you're doing. Because we're coming back to the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide.
They went a little crazy with it, and I appreciate it.
Now let's get back with Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide.
There he is. Johnny Million, ripping and tearing. Nice. Oh my God. He's just trying to trigger me. Don't forget to check out It's Johnny Million on Twitch and YouTube.
Can't shut me up over there.
Nope, not at all. Also, can I just show this chart, which I just find hysterical,
Ooh, yes,
before we
please.
move on to talking about the Houthis who found out this week, just for the record. Check this out. This is the temperature. I've got a chart up on right now, and Johnny, I'm sure we'll see it, and it's in the show notes I gave you. This is the coldest. This is the temperature of the Caucasus over the year. The yellow is at caucus time. The red is the highest, and the blue is the cold on the day that they had them. Right.
Dang.
This is literally this year. It is projected to be the lowest high. The high temperature on the day is lower than the lowest temperature ever, which is in 2000. That little thing right there. Good Lord.
Wow.
Again, Donald Trump, master of timing. Now, seriously. So, a couple of things. A lot of, we apparently the State Department and the Defense Department have announced this week, or yesterday, that they have struck one more Houthi site, which was a radar, station that they hadn't hit during the other strikes that they did with the UK. And by the way, the Netherlands and Australia and basically anybody who had a ship going through the region that was sick of having their citizens fired upon randomly by these guys. Now, after the first round of strikes that the Houthis did, every article you saw was, oh my God, this is a major escalation. Yeah. I don't know how and again, there's some just kind of straight up the bigotry of low expectations or something, that the Houthis firing on civilian ships and on military ships and at helicopters and, hijacking ships and taking people hostage. Why wasn't that the major escalation? Because they were not involved in the Israel-Gaza conflict until they started firing on civilian ships. One would think that would be the escalation. It would come from their side, if I do say so myself. Now, that said, after the strikes happened, the Houthis came out. The leader of the Houthis came out and stood in front of, I think the podium was actually Baghdad Bob's. I think he got it in the divorce, and he came out and he said, "We will strike back, and we will in a definitive way. We're not going to talk about it. We're just going to do it. And when we do it, you're going to know about it, and it's going to be, terrible and terrifying and awful and huge and will dominate and all this other stuff. Basically, it's going to be a giant slam dunk." They did respond. They fired one more missile, and they fired it, wait for it, at a Russian oil tanker.
Oh.
And they missed. But they did. They fired it at a Russian oil tanker. Not a Russian oil tanker that was stopping in Israel, by the way. Not one that was taking Israeli oil or, I guess, Jewish oil from someplace to someplace else. Nope. They just said, we'll show them. And they fired a missile at a Russian tanker, which I think the U.S., one of our ships batted away, effectively, is why it didn't strike. That said, we struck one more place, which was the radar battery, which the assumption is that this is the radar battery that showed them where that ship was and therefore allowed them to target a ship as badly as they did. It's kind of generically went, oh, there's a ship there, let's just hit it. Let me be abundantly clear. There is no evidence whatsoever, rather than some kind of random blather and the printing of Palestinian flags and handing them out in groups there, that these folks care about the Gazans at all. The Houthis are clearly anti-Israel and anti-Saudi at the same time. And the reason they are in this is because Abraham Accords aside, the Biden administration and Blinken were in the process of getting the Saudis to start to normalize relationship with Israel over the summer. And that was one of the things that was the last straw. And they had to, join in this attack, and they feign this idea that they're supporting the Gazans in this by attacking, again, ships at random, 27 civilian ships, and firing on the ships that were protecting them, that only show up, by the way, when they call a mayday. We're not riding by these oil tankers and just giving them an escort. They have to call for help. There's too many of them. And these folks fired on these things. And for the record, I'm confused by a lot of folks who call this an escalation or even an illegal war firing on Yemen. The missiles that are striking these ships are coming from these sites in Yemen territory, but it is not from the government of Yemen. It is from the Houthis in Houthi-controlled areas, who are not the recognized government of Yemen. They are a terrorist organization. So the idea that you would need a declaration of war would also have to establish, literally, if you wanted to argue that there had to be a declaration of war and that Biden had to go to Congress to ask for permission to do this strike, and they've made the same argument in the UK, before you had the vote on whether or not you could do that, you would have to also have a vote on recognizing the Houthis as the actual government of Yemen, which wouldn't pass. And then the second vote about whether to take action would also become null and void and unnecessary because you don't, the authorized use of military force covers the Houthis. Exactly. That's right, chat room. So it's the irony of it is that they would have two wasted votes. And the only people that would benefit from that process, arguably, would be the Houthis, who would be able to, I guess, move some of their military positioning to other places in the interim. The idea, you're going to call a parliament in UK on a Monday, and you call in the US Congress, and they'll debate it for a certain amount of time while they move their stuff out of the way of the targets. And now, obviously, we would probably be able to see where they're moving the stuff. But the problem is you would give them time to move it, and there's a very strong chance they would move it to more civilian areas instead of the military spots that they had staked out, and thereby using people as human shields, which is another reason why you don't want to give them the heads up. And by the way, and then giving them the heads up after they have already fired not only on U.S. ships, but on Russian ships. They have taken Japanese, Bahrainian, Ukrainians, and Filipino merchant Marines hostage. They still have them. We struck the port where they're being held hostage and where their boat is. So the irony is just palpable. And the sort of kind of blatant ignorance of certain people just going, all attacks are bad if it goes against the folks that I'm kind of siding with, although I don't have a good reason to side with them. It is very odd to me that, even in the Houthi situation, there is not sort of a Palestinian civilian equivalent as it were. We're not blockading that area. The Saudis would play a bigger part in that, but we struck military sites. End of story. We didn't, and they didn't have time to move their stuff the way Hamas does in civilian areas and the like. It is very odd to me that some people are claiming that the Houthis somehow, by the way, and I showed this on my stream yesterday. Look up Houthis Nazi salute, and you won't be disappointed. I'm just saying it delivers. It's not halfway. It's not like a picture of Laura Ingraham where is she really, or is she just kind of, is it a dog whistle, semi-accidental way that she's doing it so the right people think she's doing it, but it gives her an out? No, they're all standing in lines doing it. Yep. They're all standing in line doing it, yelling death to America, death to Israel, curse the Jews. And there you go.
They literally use the Nazi salute because it's the Nazi salute.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And again, there's a big swath in the Middle East of an extension of that belief system. Again, if you go to Syria, you can still buy Hitler stamps. You can still buy like pictures of Hitler as the good guy, to hang in your house. Like portraits of Hitler are not that weird in the Assad world in Syria. So, which is whatever, like that. You don't have to be for everything the UK or the United States does in the Middle East, or lack concern about possible blowback, or actually have a conversation about it, as you should as a member of a democracy who has a genuine care about human life and stuff. But you don't have to like hang all your common sense on a wall hook every time you talk about it. Good Lord. Well, that's a very, deep hole we could go down. When we come back, though, interestingly enough, many of the folks who talk about what I suppose Hamas should do in relation to how Israel doesn't actually talk about Gaza, quite frankly. But the idea is that there's some right-wingers in Netanyahu's crowd that want to ethnically cleanse Gaza, and they are at war, politically, with other members of the cabinet and of his own group, and not, it's not uniform amongst them, and certainly other members of the parliament in Israel in general, about whether or not that's the tech, or whether it's even feasible, or whether it's a good idea, or whether it's moral. There's a whole conversation going on there. But there's a group of people who believe that that's how they all think about it, in some sort of unanimity in the Israeli government, that you got to just broom everyone out of Gaza and it's genocide and those kind of words, whatever. Curiously enough, their response is that that's what gives Hamas an excuse to storm across security checkpoints and sexually assault women and then murder them while they're being sexually assaulted, and burn babies alive and all that kind of stuff. It's just because it's, in the words of Hamas Abi, Cenk Uyghur's nephew, baby settlers are enemy combatants. Like it's bizarre, but that's the argument that they're making. On the other side of it, far, far away, oddly, in the name of world peace, many of them are also saying that Taiwan just needs to roll over and let itself be taken over by China for world peace, for stability, that that the idea that we support, Taiwan, which is a much smaller group that is not, again, Taiwan has never been a part of, under the CCP, never been under the Chinese Communist Party, never been a part of China as it is, governed now, not ever. So even the idea that you're going to retake it, and they're the same people, and yet somehow the Taiwanese, according to these same folks, are supposed to do the opposite of what they would, I guess, arguably be giving permission to Hamas to do on behalf of the Palestinians, because it might spill their tea while they're trying to drink tea. There's a lot of noise. They're trying to have a conversation in Starbucks and it's very noisy outside. And that's their feeling towards the sort of China-Taiwan thing. Well, the Taiwanese aren't on board with that idea. And I'll tell you why after we come back. It's the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide. Now on WCPT Radio Chicago's Progressive Talk, AM 820, it's WCPT820.com. And of course, next Saturday, San Francisco, Sexy Liberal coming your way. We'll be back.
Whoop, whoop.
So, John, in case you didn't see this one, this is what I'm referring to.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, I see.
Mm-hmm. Oops. Take the studio mode out there. That's why. I was like, why is this thing not coming through? And then I'm like, okay, first of all,
thing.
I don't know how this happened, but this got moved all the way to the back. There you go. The Venmo thing got moved way back in the back for some strange reason. And it's supposed to be just behind my head. Under me, baby. Yeah. There you go. And then, no, but still, why is it? Quit it, you silly thing.
Quit it. Ow. Quit it. Ow. Quit it.
Stop it. Big dummy. All right. I should be able. There, now it's behind me. Okay. We'll look at this in a second. Hold on. That's a little better. We got to fix some stuff.
We're back in 15.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm working on a new setup, so again, it takes a lot of tweaking, so I'm not quite there yet.
You're locked into the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide.
So, yesterday, Lai Ching-te has become the president of Taiwan, and when we say president of Taiwan, we really mean it, because Xi Jinping is not the president of China. He presides over the CCP, so he is the presiding agent of the CCP for all practical purposes. But in terms of how we view presidents, he is not anything like that. He's much more monarchical in his power structure, and he has every, he's set it up essentially so that he can be a dictator for life. He didn't step down when he changed the rules once he was in there. Those are not things you can do when you are a president. Taiwan has a real president, and they would have even had one that was friendlier to China had they voted that person in. They didn't. And this there was a lot of, especially on TikTok, which again, ladies and gentlemen, TikTok is malware. Get it off your phone for a myriad of reasons. But in the over the process of this, over the last few months in the lead up to this election, China was doing everything it could, especially on TikTok in the Chinese community in Taiwan and in the United States, to try and lean them towards the idea that, well, the guy who's friendly to China and is more willing to kind of accept Chinese control over Taiwan he's not that bad, and he's way more moderate on it than people think. It didn't work. And congratulations to Lai Ching-te to be as the new president of Taiwan, who, and the way Bloomberg is putting it in this article, Taiwan elects U.S.-friendly president defying China's warnings. First of all,
does that just mean that they followed the democratic process? Yes,
that just means they're U.S.-friendly because they're not willing to be taken over by China. That's it. I mean, it's not even that doesn't mean they're going to roll over and do what we say. They definitely appreciate our protection, again, and they do have it, because as much as China would like to pretend otherwise, and as much as they would like to, posture and fly over the top left-hand corner of the airspace of China and call it a breach, and Donald Trump can go, they flew right over the island back and forth. There are just so many planes there, and they're literally just transiting the upper edge of the airspace is like, oh. You said don't touch it. I touch it. Right.
I'm not touching you.
Yeah. Right. I'm not touching you. I'm pointing, but I'm not touching you. That kind of, that's the level of their sort of argument for the strength of their military might and their resolve. Taiwan came back and said, and by the way, they had three main candidates. Let's see if they can. They have. I don't know if they have a graphic in this article. They have three main
Do
candidates
they have
who were running.
parties in Taiwan?
Yes, they do. They have three separate parties. This is the current party
Is there
that
like
also
a Labor and a Conservative and
sort of. The DPP is the one that won. And where let's see so I don't know that I was looking for some way to kind of show it kind of in a more simple situation, but ultimately he won with like 36%. The other two groups split like 25 and like 23%, something like that. And again, the group that was friendly to China ended up in a kind of Trumpian way with only about 30% hardcore support, or less than 30%, about 26% hardcore support for them. And even those folks, a large portion of them were kind of arguing that he wasn't as close to China and he doesn't want Taiwan to be taken over as much as he actually does. So you can argue that there was some soft support in there because they liked other aspects of it. But the other group that was competing against them as well also was more pro-democracy, pro-U.S., pro-Western, I wouldn't say values, but more like political system. And again, like gay marriage is legal in Taiwan. There's they're a much more open society than China is, and they want to maintain that. So even if they hadn't been all in on where the DPP was, the other party was, much closer to that. They minor differences, and they came in effectively at a tie with the other one. So the majority of voters by far in Taiwan side with a pro-democracy, anti-China hegemony kind of approach. And of course, the response was from China, the country, by the way, that has just purged, I want to say at this count, 6 leaders of their military, including one who either did himself in or was tortured to death. But of course, the only reason he did himself in was because he had been tortured. He was tortured so badly, he knew he would never walk or speak correctly, so they gave him an opportunity. I mean, horrifying.
Jesus.
Horrifying. Now, why did they purge? Why did Xi Jinping purge 6 or more members of effectively their Pentagon? Well, one of the big reasons is because it was just found out that a lot of their long-range missiles that they were sort of counting on for this big Taiwan incursion, and that they were kind of saber rattling at India mainly and a little bit at the United States. They were more like flexing with America, but saber rattling at India. That's pretty much where their posture comes from. Yeah, the engines and the area where the explosives were filled with water. They discovered, it was a big scandal in China, that a bunch of the missiles that would be very crucial to their national defense and more to the point, the national offense, were filled with water. Also, their long-range missile silos that were buried in the earth, apparently the doors on the top of them that are supposed to open automatically. Every time you've seen a movie about nuclear war, it's one of the first things they do. As a matter of fact, it's how from satellites now you can tell if something was about to happen. All during the Cold War, one of the things that made everybody nervous or got us close to something is that they would open the bomb doors, that they would open the missile doors. And apparently they didn't have any mechanism to be opened in the first place. Some of them were welded shut. And the ones that did open, you would have to, I suppose, get a bunch of Conan's relatives outside and attach chains to them, and they would just pull them open. I mean, nuts. It's crazy. They, never mind that the Huawei thing. Remember the Huawei chip stuff? I don't know if you remember this, that Huawei supposedly had beat American chip sanctions and created a 7-nanometer chip that without the U.S. And this was all over the news that China doesn't need Taiwan's lithography machines to print these chips. They've got their own technology. We don't need the West. We don't need anything from America. And it turned out that it was a Taiwanese chip. They had bought it They just bought a bunch of them as we were arguing about the sanctions. They bought giant bulks of those chips and then put them in stuff relatively swiftly. Literally just painted the name, of one of the Chinese chip companies over where it was made in Taiwan. Again, they're sort of mortal.
That's one way to do it.
Yeah. They also, by the way, their equivalent of the Apache helicopter, which they supposedly made at home. Turns out not only is it an old, like a Russian/Soviet design, which is visually a ripoff of the Apache, but the engines actually came from a Canadian company that sold them these engines under the table because they wanted and they were fined $75 million for doing it when it was discovered. But these the engines that this company wanted the commercial helicopter contract in China, so to get it, to sweeten the deal, they gave them some military engines under the table.
Well, I'm embarrassed to say that my cup holders are in that thing. Like, I didn't know who I was selling to at the time.
Right, that's true. Yeah, and I've seen several things. The Wolf Warriors are all wearing Johnny Million hoodies right now, and it's
embarrassing.
But according to them, they made them there and they designed them there, and it's their idea. Mm-hmm. Just saying. We'll be back right after this. Philip Ittner is joining us from Kyiv in just a moment. Like, subscribe, give a thumbs up, support the show. Patreon.com/HalSparks. We'll be back right after this. Ow, ow.
I'm using my OBS virtual cam, Hal, which has a better background removal.
Oh, okay. There you go.
There's a plugin just called background removal. It's a free open source plugin that I just use as a filter.
Right.
Seems to be pretty sturdy compared to the one, because I was trying to use the one from Prism.
Yes.
Those Prism lenses, and it's decent, but it's a little wobbly.
Mm-hmm. I'm always wrestling against crawling ants in my version of it.
Yeah.
The key to mine is, you can see how my arm is lit right here, down here. It's the cutout lights. Because if you put my hand up there, it gets really bright. That's the key, is bouncing some light down here.
Ah.
Mm-hmm.
Some groin lights.
Oh, yeah.
Philip, your beard looks so fucking good.
Thank you.
That's just perfect.
It's just rude.
Very Ray Winston.
What's crazy is that I saw Phil in the heat of the summer, and when he unzips just this much, it's all like the beard just keeps going. Like well on top of his pecs. It's crazy.
I know. I'm an escaped Yeti.
You're our Yeti.
Not for long.
Yeah, we're gonna catch you.
Yeah, we're gonna get you. I've got footage of it going on. There we go. Mercy. There we go. We switch you over there.
I would love to see.
There you go.
There it is.
That's right. That's the side shot. It's great.
Do you ever see the Bobby Moynihan and I don't know who it was doing the reproduction of the Twilight Zone with the monster on the wing? And it's Bobby
Was it on
Moynihan.
SNL? I don't think so, but
it's
I
on
bet it was
SNL.
great.
Yeah, no, it's hysterical.
There's a man on the wing of this plane.
Right. Oh yeah. Don't you understand? There's a man on the wing of this plane.
Man on the wing.
Do I have to
But
tell you?
they took it further. He was like doing like barbecuing on the wing.
Oh
Right.
yeah, I have seen that.
And then it wasn't Foo Fighters. It was come on, another rock band. They were on the wing with them, and
Oh, that's
very
funny.
silly. But I always remember Bobby Moynihan's.
Yeah.
I
And
thought
the weird
Lithgow
thing is,
did a
it
good
looks like a
job in the movie
Morlock
version.
Like that Morlock, those
Yeah.
Morlock masks from Time Machine really got around for a while.
Oof.
Yeah.
Had a bunch of them left over.
That
Mhm.
movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, the '60s version. Oof, so good.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
For real, Diana, they postpone that game? Is it too cold?
The Steelers game in Buffalo.
Yeah.
And the Jets, I think, also got postponed.
I think
The
that's
Jets are playing?
wise.
Jets or Giants, actually. I think it was a New York team.
I don't think either of them are in the playoffs.
I only saw a headline.
Right.
Maybe it was the Bills, actually.
Could be
I
the
don't know.
Bills, yeah.
As I say. Maybe I better actually, you know what? Now I think about it, looking, trying to remember the photograph. I think it may have been the Bills. Oh dear!
Who
Oh
can
dear!
say?
Oh dear! Oh dear!
So,
Yeah,
couple
Boston
of things.
Brian's right. Postponing football, that's illegal. That's
Right.
impossible.
Right.
That's
like, yeah. I thought these guys were tough.
We're back in 20.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, come on, man.
Hold on 1 second. There, yeah. Okay, a couple of things. What was
Well,
the,
we've got the lines. We have the British PM. We have Gonzalo Lira, which I don't think we can avoid, as uncomfortable and as unpleasant a topic as it is. Oh yeah.
You're listening to the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide.
I've had people walk out of me before, but not when I was being so charming.
Video streaming at halsparks.com.
I don't care for you or for the putrid sludge you're troweling out.
Damn, puss-faced little pimp-stick.
True progressive talk.
Might be a good time for you guys to give up.
So, welcome to the show. Philip Ittner joining us from Kyiv with his painting of Olga of Kyiv behind him, and also a mace, just in case the fighting breaks out anew and gets really medieval. So, a couple of, there's a bunch of stuff to talk about right out of the gate. I have my own ones, but let's just jump straight in. And also, people, if you have a question for Phil about what's going on in Ukraine, please send them to Johnny in the chat at infotainmentwars.com or at twitch.tv/AlSparks or on the Facebook page or on, I suppose, X. I can't call it what I call it on my stream because it's a bad word. But yeah, get those ready for him, and we'll get to those in just a moment. And I want to thank everybody for the super chats and for supporting the show. Thank you guys so much. The most generous and smart crowd on the interwebs. Also, hit that like. All right, now, so people see this conversation. Now, if I may, well, let's just start with how you're doing and what the recent news from there is, because there's obviously a lot of action happening there right now.
There is actually a lot of it under the wire, and none of it momentous. But we had the British Prime Minister here yesterday, and he pledged a little over $3 billion, the largest contribution in the war's history. Really kind of an embarrassment to the United States, but the Brits are putting up $3 billion with a B dollars, 2.5 British pounds sterling. They're going to give them a whole bunch of new weapons and a whole bunch of weapons that they haven't had before, longer range artillery, most notably. But it's also just it's a massive boost in the arm for Ukraine, who's been very worried about what's happening domestically in the United States and our Ukrainian policy, and we have been not proving ourselves to be a very reliable partner. What's happening domestically in the United States, taking attention away from Ukraine, is not lost here. The French foreign minister, just to add on to that, the French foreign minister was here today.
Right.
The Baltic states, the Poles, the Europeans do seem to be stepping up, and I can't obviously say because I'm not in cabinet meetings in various capitals around the European Union what their motivation is, but they may be seeing the unreliability of the United States and are stepping up because they, of course, also because Ukraine is on their doorstep. The fighting continues. There's been, this whole idea that there was a spring offensive and then it ended and it wasn't a success because there was a massive, territorial gain by the Ukrainians. I mean, all along, as we've discussed on this program many times, the fighting was not limited to a spring offensive. The Ukrainians are going to fight all the way through this winter. They're going to
Mhm.
fight all the way into fall. They'll fight into summer and spring. You know, they're never going to stop taking it to Russia. And
Mhm.
especially because if you let the Russians settle in, they will build defenses and it'll even be harder. So we've seen some movement around Avdiivka, around a town called Limon, which is just north of Bakhmut. You know, a little territory lost, a little territory gained. There's a Russian unit that's been encircled or almost encircled in a pincer movement. So some good news, some bad news on the front lines, but there is still continued fighting. This myth that it was only going to be a spring offensive and then both sides
Mhm.
would settle down for the winter. That's just not happening.
No.
And we knew that. Those of us who have
Right.
been paying attention here.
Yeah.
And then thirdly, unfortunately, a topic I really don't want to talk about, but it's unavoidable. An American citizen, a Peruvian American citizen, has died in prison here in Ukraine. He was a vlogger by the name of Gonzalo Lira.
Right.
Lira is a deeply, deeply problematic individual because he came to Ukraine to do basically what those guys in Romania, whose name escapes me at the moment here, who are doing kind of bro videos about how to
Andrew
pick up
Tate?
girls, the Tate brothers,
Yeah,
the
yeah.
Tate brothers.
Mhm.
This guy was a kind of a Tate brother kind of model, although he wasn't, you know, buffed out and all the rest of it. He was a sloppy, long-haired kind of hippy dippy lefty guy.
Excuse me.
I'm trying to be respectful. Trying to
Right.
be respectful here because he's also dead.
Yeah.
His family is bereaved.
Mhm.
However, and there's just no way of getting around it. He was in Ukrainian custody.
Right.
And he should have been cared for. He should not
Right.
have been allowed to die of what apparently was double pneumonia. You know, the prison system, the penal system, the judicial system here is one area of society that needs significant reform. But
Gotcha.
nevertheless, he is dead. It is sad. There is no two ways around it. It's sad the guy died. But let's put a couple of things in perspective here.
Mhm.
Gonzalo Lira came here to do red pill how to sleep with Ukrainian poor, impoverished Eastern European Ukrainian women. He
Right.
was not a pleasant human being. He found in the way of Jimmy Dore that he could make a lot of money by kind of pushing forward Russian
Yeah.
talking points, and so he did, while still in Ukraine. And he did things like dox out you know, officers in Ukrainian military units and their movements. And basically the Ukrainians said he was an information warrior. He was not a journalist, which is what he claimed to be.
Right.
But instead he was revealing military secrets, and he was basically putting Ukrainian soldiers' lives at risk. So they arrested him. They then let him out on house arrest, and then he tried to flee to Hungary. And stupidly, there's no other way to say it, he put a vlog out saying, "I'm on the Hungarian border and I'm going to run away from my probation," basically, which is not the smartest thing. So then the Ukrainians said, "Well, no, you're not." And they threw him back in jail. And Ukrainian jails are not nice places to be in. You know, it's just, again, they need reform. And he got sick, and they didn't properly care for him. And it does look like he died of double pneumonia from neglect from the Ukrainian penal system. And there's just no way around it. You know, if you love a country or a place or a person or a thing, you have to love them warts and all. And so I will say, as much as I love Ukraine, this is an area of Ukraine's infrastructure and their society that desperately needs reform. He should have been cared for as a warden of the state. He should have been cared for, but there's a lot of post-Soviet mentality here when it comes to prisons. But it's now, of course, I mean, Tucker Carlson is already taking advantage of it because he had interaction with Lira. And so now the tanky left is going to use this against Ukraine, and the Ukrainian authorities should have known it and made double sure that this guy saw his day in court and if he was guilty of what he was accused of, which I personally think he was guilty
Yeah.
He was not a journalist. He was a polemicist at best and a propagandist or an information warrior at worst for the Russians. So I have no sympathy for the way he conducted himself in life, but nobody should die in prison as a warden of the state.
Agreed.
So it's a sad day. It's an unfortunate topic. But it's, as I say, warts and all, you have to take Ukraine for what it is, and it will only improve once the war is over and the Russians are expelled. I am confident of that, and I remain confident.
Are you under the impression that he was neglected simply because the prisons are neglectful places, or do you think there's a possibility that they neglected him on purpose because they knew what he was up to, and he was, they had?
No, I think it's I think it's far more likely that he was put into the Ukrainian penal system, and it has the same post-Soviet mentality that Russia does. I've had interaction with law enforcement here. My apartment unfortunately was burgled, as some may remember. So I've had interaction with the judicial system, and there was a guy who was caught in my case, and he was sentenced to a prison term that I personally, for for just using a bunch of stolen credit cards. Which is what the guy did. He found my wallet. He used some of the credit cards, and they came down on him like a ton of bricks. I thought the prison term was far excessive, but there is a mentality in this part of the world, and in particular it remains in Russia, and it's far worse in Russia. And we can talk about Alexander Navalny if you want to at some point as well, because he's engaged in the Russian system. But there's a mentality in this part of the world, in the post-Soviet world, that if you're in prison, you're there for a reason. You are presumed guilty before innocent. And also they're not funded. They're not properly funded. They're not properly cared for. When you are a ward of the state, when you are, whether it's an orphanage, an old person's home, a mental facility, or indeed a prison, they still have that old Soviet mentality of you're a burden on the state, and how dare you? Shame on you.
So you don't really necessarily it wasn't targeted. This is just an overall issue that needs reform in Ukraine when this is all over, or in the process of doing it while it's going on at the same time. Do you think it'll draw that attention? You think there'll be any kind of news about it?
I don't know if I don't know if he is going to. I don't know if his death is going to measure on the. Well, I don't think it's going to measure so much domestically within Ukraine, because look, Ukrainians are dying every day. So a Peruvian American guy who went online and basically spat in the face of the Ukrainian armed forces while living in Ukraine, and
originally came there to essentially sex traffic women is the idea.
Exactly. So I don't think he's going to. His death will have. And except with the possible exception that, that there
US,
may be
UK,
some
and
talk
others,
from West,
US
and others saying like, hey,
which is
man,
which is a good thing, as it should. We got to take a break. When we come back, I do want to talk about the apparently this report that the Ukrainians are just like knocking aircraft out of the sky at an extraordinary clip with a secret weapon. We'll be back right after this. It's the Houthis Radio program, Mega Worldwide, now with 100% more Johnny Million and our dear friend Philip Ittner. Follow him, Ittner Philip, on the Twit machine, and then of course on Threads and everywhere else. Go to follow Philip Ittner, 1L, 2 T's. We'll be back. Yep. So
we're off the air now, right? We're temporarily off the air, and the dude was a shit. The dude was an absolute shit, and he deserved to be imprisoned. He deserved to be found guilty. He did not deserve to die
for it, right?
Neglect of double money. But he was a terrible guy. Oh man, I mean the stuff he used to post was just, the stuff if you look into his history, it's like, oh man, dude.
Yeah. Well, he's the kind of guy who actually, had they not caught him and he'd crossed in the Romanian border, probably would have gotten snuffed by some Romanian in a idiotic dust up in that country, because there's one of the reasons why like Andrew Tate and his brother are like all yoked out and sort of faux Muslim is because they use that as both cover and protection, which he had neither. So yeah.
I'm not going to exactly mourn him, but it's not a good.
Yeah,
it's
no,
not a good
absolutely.
So anyhow,
yeah.
so you want to talk about the air war?
Yeah. Well,
there's also the fire in Petersburg. There's
there was and Chechnya, the headquarters of the 70th Motorized Rifle Regiment in Chechnya were burned to the ground for some weird reason.
Lots of
Nikki
fires.
Haley
Lots
actually
of
came out and said our interests are aligned with Ukraine and her final push for voters in Iowa. That's a good sign. And again, she thinks this is a good.
If it wasn't for everything
argument.
else she says, I'd love that. Yeah,
right. Yeah, I mean, never going to vote for her. It doesn't matter. But the idea that she might.
We're back in 20.
Thinks that. Thank you. That she thinks she's bringing the argument. You know, this is one of her seal the deal messages is a good sign as well.
Sure.
But we'll get to that as well.
Well, because you got to know her team has done the polling and all the rest of it, and found that actually, supporting Ukraine is generally pretty popular.
Yes, it is. Right.
I hope so.
I know I'm only on 1 day a week. I get it. I'm gonna have to jump on GarageBand and start sawing something together. This is the Hal Sparks Show. Wow. And a guitar note, and then progressive and all. Yeah, it's gonna be good.
Hey, Hal, did you mean something like this?
This is the Hal Sparks Show. Wow. And a guitar note, and then progressive and all. Yeah, it's gonna be good.
The Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide.
Yeah, it's gonna be good.
So there's been a lot of blather from some folks about their military prowess in the last 72 hours. The Houthis said they shot down an F-22, which for the record they did not do. Like not even close. Like it's silly. As a matter of fact, in the Houthi attacks, and I'm curious, Phil, in your experience with the Iraq War and Afghanistan and other places like that, the specifically to minimize civilian casualties, the UK and the US took extra risks in that they did not just send in Tomahawk missiles to all these sites. They flew planes over these sites, lasered the site, and targeted them with planes in the area. Now, one of the reasons is because the Houthis do not have the ability to shoot down an airplane. They can fire missiles in the sky, but they don't have anything that will track. They don't have heat-seeking missiles that are fast enough to catch a jet or any of these things. And so beyond the fact that they absolutely did not shoot one down, the U.S. felt safe enough to fly thousands of miles. And they circled around these sites for a long time before they fired on these places. They were in the air over some of these Houthi sites for an hour. You could see them. And again, that's some bug out time, and that's why the Houthis are saying that only 5 people died in these attacks. 5 people, and the idea that any of them were civilians is kind of ridiculous or whatever. But the Russians currently in all this, while they're getting drone support from Iran, which they have done, as do the Houthis, by the way, this is another big client state. The Houthis are clients of Iran, the same way Russia is in terms of this, and they've got their UAVs in the air, the ones that sound like a moped and can be shot down with conventional gunfire. The Russians can't or won't or don't imagine or fear the idea of at least up to this point of trying to get air superiority, and I guess they come too late to the game because one of these weapons that I will say outright that the U.S. has given Ukraine to use but not talk about, said they this is Zelensky. This is Zelensky's quote on this. Partners have provided us with some long-range weapons. I won't say what, but our partners will understand. With it, we destroyed 26 helicopters in a day and 12 planes that took off and attacked with missiles, against which these systems are working. We destroyed 12 at once. We just had the means. 12 planes at once with a barrage of whatever this heat-seeking missile system, this anti-aircraft system that we provided them. This is the U.S. This is a U.S. system, no question about it. But they're, it's one of those like, shh, here, take these bananas. It was one of those moments, right? Fans of Damon Wayans will know exactly what I'm talking about. But the fact that they're talking about in this process, 12 airplanes in one fell swoop and 26 helicopters in a day. Yeah. Helicopters have like, if they're just running stuff, they have 2 well-trained pilots that are hard to train up. Flying a helicopter is very difficult, and getting a good helicopter pilot takes a long time. And so to lose 2 of them is terrible. They're usually too close to the ground for people to parachute out. And there's that whole thing of the blender above you that would just chew you up if you did have some sort of ejection system. Some of them do, but most of the time doesn't work out that way. They're too close to the ground, they just crash. But 26, and then the rest of the time they have 8 or 10 soldiers in them, or a general, or supplies, or any number of really important things. 26 in 24 hours, and 12 planes at once.
Yeah. There's something new here.
Yeah.
There's definitely something new here.
There's something.
There has been speculation that there are F-16s that are here and that are in the skies. That's certainly possible. It would be, one of the advantages of the F-16 is that you can fire at a number of different targets from a very far distance. So it would make sense
miles away.
Miles away using and you can have one plane, one F-16 in the air that has different ordnance on the wings, one to deal with something like a helicopter, which flies at a very different kind of flight pattern and elevation as a jet or speed. And then, also the F-16 can have on that same platform, on that same plane, you can have ship to, air to air missiles that'll take out, jets and things like that. So I could see it being an F-6. The F-16s are already here, and we're starting to see the effect of it. But it's also possible that there's, another anti-air,
some sort of Patriot-esque Iron Dome-ish kind of situation that just doesn't have a declassified name yet. But probably by the end of the war, there'll be, all the mill bloggers all over the world will be talking about its use in the Battle of whatchamacallit, depending on where it was, Avdiivka, Kherson, something like that. It's a
they also took out the latest generation of anti-aircraft radar that the Russians have. So the Russians have this new system that they say can spot things from wherever and provide, identification and targeting for anti-aircraft. And they were very, very proud of these things. And then the Ukrainians are like, yeah, but you didn't properly defend them on the ground. So we knew where they were with a bunch of drones and we were able to target them. So we knocked them out, look, the air war is definitely intensified. There does seem to be an advantage on the Ukrainian side. And that is going to provide cover for ground troops. We've seen a lot of activity on the ground. There's a great, there's an amazing video that was dropped just today of 2 Ukrainian Bradleys that we gave them, our Bradley fighting vehicles.
Taking out tanks. Yeah.
Absolutely outperforming. Just really impressive what these things are doing.
Yeah.
And what the Ukrainians are doing with them. Yeah, taking out a tank. 2 infantry fighting vehicles or armored personnel carriers, whichever term you want to use.
Yeah.
Taking out a tank. It's not supposed to happen. The tank is supposed to be the absolute juggernaut.
It's the pinnacle of moving armament, right?
And compared to a thing that weighs half of its tonnage,
Mhm.
Okay, albeit two of them, taking them out. I mean, that's just it's another indication that the Ukrainians are just the kit's better, generally for the most part, and the Ukrainians are using them better. So
Right.
both in the air and on the ground, we're seeing advantages. And then with this announcement by the UK just yesterday or recently that they're going to start getting long range artillery, that means there's a very, very, very good chance that the Crimea, the Kerch Bridge, the bridge that connects Crimea to mainland Russia across the strait there, might be within artillery distance or some form of artillery.
Well, there's and there arises. We're gonna get by the way everybody's questions after the next break, so get them ready and send them over. Johnny Million's got a few for you already, but we'll do it when we come back from this break. But one of the other stories that caught my eye was this Igor Girkin, who's in jail. He's a he calls himself a Russian nationalist. He's certainly not necessarily a good guy. He's just kind of anti-Putin, I suppose, in that regard. But it's not because he would be. He's not to the left of Alexei Navalny or something like that necessarily. But he's of the opinion. I mean, it's hard to say on their whatever their standard is. My point. But he helped annex Crimea in 2014. He, according to him,
well, he was the head of.
Yeah.
Just to clarify, he was the head of the Donbass militia. So he is actually a little green man. From Donbass, but he's a Russian nationalist. But he was the head of the Donbass militia, and then it was a catastrophe his leadership, and so he fled back to Russia. So that's the kind of guy this is, and he's now in prison.
Right, and he writing from prison says by his estimation as far as his knowledge of the troops or whatever, and I think the quote is he's forecast that the army will soon run out of men, leaving Russia with no forces to push forward with the invasion of Ukraine. He's saying there are no men to be called up. There are not enough. There's just they couldn't manage to do it, and especially because Putin can't do it before the elections. We got to take a break. We'll be back right after this with your questions in the chat room at infotainmentwars.com. We don't need the documents. We got everything memorized. And of course, at twitch.tv/HalSparks. We'll be back. What are you doing?
We're going to learn if the Russians have zombie technology any minute now.
Oh, well, believe me, spend a couple hours on the Russian Telegram channels. They're going to need it because
there might
God
already
damn the number of fucking dead. It's
Boston Brian just chimed in. Let Hal know that U.S. officials are saying that the strike on Houthi anti-ship missile site near Hodeida was not conducted by U.S. forces.
It was UK.
Brits.
The follow-up shot, you mean?
Not certain.
Okay.
Could be Brits. Doubtful French. No, it's got to be Brits.
The Doubtful
I don't
French
think
is the name of my improv group.
There you go. Just always remember to say we.
We and.
We and. We eat.
We eat.
We eat. Oh, Gherkin. Yeah, and see, Gherkin also has an axe to grind. He is PO'd at the Kremlin, and I'll tell you why he's PO'd at the Kremlin. Well, one of the major reasons he's PO'd at the Kremlin is because at the beginning of the war, the Russians just sent the Donbass militias into the meat grinder. They just threw them at Ukrainian lines with no backup, no defense, no air, no nothing.
And then blamed him for failing in a no-win situation.
Exactly. And then also the people of Donbass started saying, like, if you really care about us, as you proclaim this war is all about all about us being able to be, speak Russian and be connected to Russia and all the rest of it, then why did you just throw our young men into the meat grinder like you did if you respect us so greatly? They don't care about the Donbass. They don't care about it at all. They just care about the being able to get to the Crimea.
Right.
So Gherkin, Gherkin, we'll see what happens to him.
He's in a pickle. Sorry.
He's in a bit of a pickle.
Sorry.
He's in a bit of a pickle.
This Gherkin fella.
I'm so glad you said it. I've been just
I know,
chomping at the
itching.
bit to
I could hear it.
pickle. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've heard
I
all your
won't miss
pickle
it. I
jokes
won't miss him.
before.
I won't miss him. Old Gherkin when he's gone.
Mm-hmm.
And they found Navalny.
Oh, they did? Okay.
Yeah, they found Navalny. He's in a prison in the far, far north, a really remote prison, which is going to make it impossible for his
That sounds really
attorneys
bad.
and his supporters. Yeah, it's not good.
Yeah,
it's not good. He's somewhere past the Arctic Circle, in some godforsaken gulag kind of place, and and he won't get any support.
Welcome back to the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide.
So obviously that Gherkin fella's in a pickle. I said it during the break, and we had to get it off. Everybody had to just it's like a zit that needs to be popped. You can't. It's just awful. I know. I'm ashamed of myself, but I don't take it back. I do not. You know why? Because I'm a dad,
I regret
and
nothing.
I'm allowed one dad joke a year. You're welcome.
Year? Wow.
Now
I save them all up for this show.
Thanks. Well, who's your daddy, Johnny Million? I think that's the question that was next on my mind. Hey, now. So, you made reference also, Philip Ittner, to the fire in St. Petersburg right now. I'm trying to show that on the thing. Good Lord. 70,000 square meters. That's their reporting.
Dang.
The damage from the fire may amount to about 10 to 11 billion rubles, which is like $12 in change. That's rough. And about 1,000 people were in the warehouse at the time of the fire. No casualties have been reported.
Wow.
I'm sure they're fine standing outside in sub-zero temperatures. Obviously they're being kept warm if they just stand in the right place, I suppose. Yeah. But yeah,
well, their infrastructure is falling apart.
Yeah,
their infrastructure, and there's a lot of people that are predicting that 2024 we're going to see a lot more of Russian infrastructure falling apart, and also
because we'll see that it already has too. The reports, they're slowing the reports of it coming out as well.
This fire in Petersburg is just a prime example of it. We've had fires and explosions at heating plants in Moscow. There's districts in Moscow, in the capital, that are literally freezing. That's what
I've told people.
Heating.
I've told people many times. Everybody owes Val Kilmer an apology for not watching his version of The Saint, because this could have all been avoided if we'd have just taken the plot of that movie seriously. Go watch it again. It's shocking. It's shocking how prescient it is. It's weird. Yeah. Let's grab some questions though before I get into it again, or you get into it again. Let's Johnny, what we got?
Our first question, Connie Kelly. Hey Johnny, can you ask Philip if the Russian drones are getting worse of the Ukrainian electronic warfare signal jamming? It's getting significantly better.
The drone war is the Russians have made improvements. The Russians have learned from their mistakes. They're developing new systems. And it really is, when it comes right down to it, this war of who can get a drone system and a drone infrastructure, a drone strategic plan that supersedes the anti-drone technology, the anti-electronic measures, countermeasures. And for now, it looks like there's almost parity. The Russians had advanced, but it looks like the Ukrainians are making advancements in how they conduct, not just with the technology that they have, although that is significant. And they've also brought down the cost, so they can make massive fleets of these drones, the Ukrainians have. And so the Ukrainians are stepping up in what their drone technology is. They're also doing their own version of electronic countermeasures, but the Russians still seem to have a slight advantage over the Ukrainians when it comes to countermeasures. But we'll see how that goes. This is an entirely new kind of war with drones. So we'll see. I still, as I say, I think they're almost at parity, and I'm hoping the Ukrainians, who are very smart in what they do with these things, will win over the Russians. But let's not underestimate the enemy.
Yeah.
Right on. Can I squeeze in another question?
Yeah, please.
Here? This one's a little lighter. It's from Shovel. Is the Ukraine still managing to play a little hockey?
First of all, it's not the Ukraine, it's Ukraine. Ukraine's a country. The Ukraine is the territorial name for it.
Yeah.
It's very Russian to do that.
Former
Jimmy Dore calls it the
imperial.
Ukraine all the time.
Anyhow.
I'll call it Ukraine. Like
Dore
Bears.
does it on purpose. I'll bet. I bet he actually. Well, I don't know. He's pretty much an idiot. So it's possible.
And Shovel did not put the in there. I did. It was
okay. Fair enough. Anyhow, regardless, getting off the point. Yes. Yeah. They're still playing. Sports. The hockey, of course, is a huge sport, and boxing is enormous. What we call soccer, what the Europeans call football, they're still preparing for the Olympics.
I call it
this leads.
I got to say, football is a way better description of it, considering in football it's all about your hands, and only one guy kicks it. I don't think you can use that as the standard. Honestly,
but what has also in the world of sport become very contentious is that the IOC, the International Olympic Committee, has agreed to let the Russians participate in the next Olympics. And of course, the Ukrainians are like, look, these you can't just turn a blind eye to the fact that, and a lot of these athletes are very, of course, patriotic and all the rest of it. So they're going out there with their little Z,
right?
Supporting Russia's invasion symbol.
I want to say
what happens when a Ukrainian and a Russian, are pitted against
competing against each other. Well, curiously enough, one of the I think it was a Ukrainian ice skater was performing this week or whatever, and they did their performance. Their uniform had a blood splatter on the chest of it as an insignia. Like, this is what we're, while I'm doing this, I'm aware that, my people are at home fighting against this. The design was literally like they'd been shot, and they were trying to make the case that, I'm not doing this unaware of what my country's going through. Whereas the Russians are like putting a Z on their stuff and going, this is going great. Eggs have never been cheaper in Russia.
And it's just it's so distasteful as well. It's just really, and it does show that everything permeates. For a Ukrainian, they're not going to separate athletics from the war, and if they're competing, or if they have to compete against a Russian, that's going to be part of it, because this is their life. They're living this, and it permeates every level of their life, including athletics.
And by the way, the egg reference I was making is because the avian flu issue that we had in the United States over a year ago that drove up egg prices in the United States and in some of our allies. Our allies did a little better because we warned them about it, and they took measures. The Russians and the Turkish leadership both decided, nah, why bother? And now eggs are super expensive, and even Turkey didn't have them to give to Russia, which was his backup plan. And so guess what he's doing? He's blaming the business leaders for price gouging. You remember that talking point? He's blaming his own folks on that. Never mind the fact that they just didn't have the government structure there to simply do inspections to make sure you're isolating a pathogen so your chickens don't die in a situation where you don't have that many farmers to begin with. Maybe you shouldn't have sent your inspectors over to die in the Donbass for nothing. Just a thought. Whatever. Okay. We got 3 minutes before the break, so if you want to do one more question, we'll see if we can fit that in.
I've got one from Eric. What are Phil and /House thoughts on Ukrainian Bradley taking out the Russian T-90?
Yeah, that's what we talked about earlier. That was the tank.
Earlier.
Yeah,
that's what I was wondering.
Yeah, it's fantastic. It's fantastic. Those machines are. I tell you what, if we really wanted to do something very simple that we could do that wouldn't take a lot of effort. Just take all of our Bradleys out of mothball and just send them over here. I mean, just all of them, all
yeah. I think
thousands of the things.
Bradley
the
Cooper.
example I would argue though is it is the equivalent of us, for whatever reason, giving transport helicopters like the Huey to the Ukrainians and having them use them more successfully as battle aircraft than the Blue Thunder of Russia, if that makes sense. That is what it's like if you put them up against each other and they're wiping the floor with these kind of like, black stealth fighters. Yeah, it's weird.
Yeah, the M2 Bradley is turning out to be one of the best systems that we sent to Ukraine, and they are doing an amazing job, and the Ukrainians love them. They and also because their soldiers can survive. So we need to send more of those.
Agreed. Let's grab another question. Yeah.
Sure. I've got one from Doc in Paradise. There are rumors of faster, quieter Iranian drones. Is that true, do you think?
I would be surprised
if
it was
Shaheeds.
Iranian. No, not the Shaheeds, and I don't think look, Iran is not at the cutting edge of drone technology. They got that stuff. A lot of it they de-engineered.
They were.
But I wouldn't be surprised if the Russians are developing stuff that are maybe based on something Iranian. But the Iranian themselves, I don't think they're.
I think there's a higher chance that if they got anything, they got it from China. And again, they've been using what are effectively agricultural drone copters that are meant to drop seed and fertilizer to drop munitions and the like. That's the closest that they would get. And those things aren't as noisy as the Shaheeds, for example, because they have a smaller electric motor, but they also don't have the range. So they have
the
to
Shaheeds. The Shaheeds don't have to be quiet because they don't use the Shaheeds against the frontline troops. They use them against civilian centers as a terror weapon.
That's right. And it's the same thing they use, that Iran uses against, separatists, like Saudi-related groups in their region and stuff. They kind of want you to be scared of the noise and keep you up at night.
Part of the point.
So they'll fly them around making a lot of noise because they can't do anything
100%.
about it. Yeah. So, anyways, let's take a break. We'll come back right after this with a bit of a happy ending, actually, and a couple more of your questions. It's the House Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide on WCPT Radio, Chicago's Progressive Talk. Chud just walked in here and just did a lap around me while I was, just did.
What did he do?
Walked in and did a lap around me. Yeah.
Who did?
You gonna feed?
Chud?
Was it a kind of? I'm just checking things out, or was it? Are you gonna feed me?
The what? Sorry.
Was it just a kind of I'm curious, or was it? Are you gonna feed me?
No, I think I think she wanted to ride upstairs. She comes down, uses the bathroom, and then she wants to ride back up. She wants me to carry her upstairs, so that she doesn't have to walk the steps. But she's much more spry now, so it's all good. She's been, these days, I don't know what it was. Yeah. Hi.
He can talk to you now.
Yeah, for a second. I'm not done. She wants you now, so now you're there. She doesn't need me anymore.
Fickle.
Yeah, totally. You thought you had. I thought.
Cats.
Yeah. Oh.
Cats.
Yeah.
Wonky Chad.
Come here. Hi. Oh gosh. Hi. How are you, my lady? How are you? Just walking in here. There she is.
There she is. Hello, Chud.
She's part bird. She turns into.
I love that.
She ate a
I
pigeon.
love the musical purr.
Yeah.
We're back in 15.
Okay.
Thank you.
Chicago.
Okay. All right. There you go. All right. There you go. Excellent. Nope. Sorry. Aw. She's like, more of that, please. I'm like, I gotta do it. I'm almost done.
I am happy, you are happy. Let us be happy together, whether the weather is cloudy or sunny. I will always be your funny honey bunny. I am lucky, you are lucky. Let us get lucky together, whether the weather is cloudy or breezy. I'll be there to say, hey, come on, let's take it easy. 'Cause isn't it nice to have the friends that you do? And isn't it nice that the sky is so blue? And isn't it nice to say I love you, chugga chugga choo choo, woo woo. I am smiling, you are smiling. Let us smile together. Whether the weather is cloudy or stormy, I will still be there in the morning. I'll be right by your side in the morning. I'll make you breakfast in the morning. I hope that you like cereal.
Yay! Hooray!
It's always a tough thing when we're talking about a happy ending, where I want the happy ending to be kind of like without a downside, without somebody being on the receiving end of it. As much as I enjoy Schadenfreude, and stuff, so I couldn't make it like a happy ending necessarily. Although I do think it's hilarious and fun that Donald Trump's caucus is going to be gacked up with snow like the football games are today, because he's a moron, and it never occurred to him that first in the nation in the areas of the worst weather often is not smart. It's not a smart start. Just not a smart start. And I would like to say just real quick, I brought up earlier, there's a report from South Korea that Hamas is using North Korean missiles and arms in their war with Israel, and it's been discovered, and they went through that. And this, there'll be more of that coming out, I have no doubt. But again, it's interesting that the arms that are showing up via Russia in Ukraine and in this particular area, and that the Houthis have their hands on, all kind of have the same sort of genesis, as it were. That there's a big alignment in this, but I would also like to the
almost
happy
like
ending
an
part.
axis.
It's almost like an axis of something not good. I'll think of a better name one day. But this one right here is kind of good news. I brought this up earlier, and I do think it's good news. There is so much corruption in the Chinese military that they found out recently that some of their long-range, a good portion of them, by their long-range missiles, that were full of water instead of fuel. So they couldn't obviously launch unless they were based on a water balloon technology, I suppose. But so China has dusted off a bunch of their big leadership, and yes, and what
you remember
that
those old rockets that we used to pump?
Yes,
with water.
That's right. Yeah. It's like their super soaker
70s,
army.
baby.
They're gonna go to war just like. And if, by the way, if they were fighting the aliens in Alien Nation and they filled them with salt water, might be an effective weapon. But in this particular case, it's really, really silly, and it has resulted in Xi Jinping killing several members of the upper levels of the Chinese military. The PLA, which is really scary and awful and nuts at the same time, because their corruption is so targeted that it was discovered. They wanted to do some missile tests, and they went out and tried it, and I don't know why the engines wouldn't start. It's weird. But the good side, the upside, is that because of that, people are starting to rethink the idea that China will be able to attack Taiwan anytime soon, even though Taiwan just elected a much more democracy-friendly government, or a continuation of their democracy-friendly government, instead of siding with China over that. So I think that's a bit of good news. Anywhere where war is pushed off farther and maybe made impossible, I think that counts. That counts as a happy ending, right? Yeah. So there you go.
I'm all for it. I don't really have a happy ending as such. I have I'm showing my little new coasters. I got my new. What does this say? It says, "Good evening. We're from Ukraine," and it's a Ukrainian girl
woman dancing,
with,
the dancing spinning dress,
with
or whatever.
the dancing
Guns?
spinning girl, but she's got 2 handguns,
Right.
which is kind of silly. But if there is a happy ending from this week, I think it's that the
Europeans are stepping up.
Are stepping up.
In defense, by the way, of America, I would like to say that we stepped up early and heavy, and Joe Biden, knowing, because he has to deal with Mike Johnson and MTG and all these idiots, and because they have this hair's breadth lead in the House that they have to get some stuff through, which really isn't going to do much. Front loaded it, knowing this would be an issue as best he could, and then has been working with Blinken and with our European partners to go, okay, you guys, we'll front load it, and then you guys pick up the slack afterwards. So there's no loss of consistency, and there hasn't been for the most part. So fingers crossed.
No, there hasn't. But and I understand that. I truly do. I really do, actually. But I still also think that we have a good thing going with Ukraine, and we
I
should have a
agree.
good partnership with them, and we really do. I mean, Milley, General Milley was right when he spoke to 60 Minutes, a month or two ago. If the war is not conducted here, there is every chance in the world that it will spill over, and we've also had
Well, it
some
arguably
really
is.
well, I was just about to say, I was there. We have some very good, former generals and geopolitical experts who are saying that the spillage, it's already starting to happen. We're seeing it in information warfare. We're seeing it in the other conflicts around the
Agreed.
world, not least of which in the Gulf and in Gaza. But if we do not stop the Russians here fully, full stop, and rightfully so, because this is where the line needs to be drawn, because
Right.
if not this line, then it'll be the next line, and the next,
Mhm.
and the next. And as such, I saw a great cartoon this morning a friend sent me, and he said, and the cartoon was a U.S. soldier standing at the foot of the bed of a GOP elephant and saying, "I'm the ghost of U.S. soldiers, future dead, if you don't start supporting Ukraine." And it's 100% right, because if the Russians continue to destabilize the world and with the implicit
If they have the means to
objective
do it,
of
that
if
is
they
the
have
other
the
thing
means
too.
to do it,
Yeah.
and the war, and I'm not going to say American soldiers would be sent to a war in Europe, but a renewed authoritarian, autocratic, imperial Russia that is emboldened by a victory in Ukraine will continue. It will not stop. It will worsen, and they will destabilize places all around the globe. And ultimately, there will be American soldiers that are dead if we do not. I'm sorry, just cut them off at the knees, the Russians, when it comes to
Well, that's the
them trying
again,
to rebuild their empire.
I think there's an argument that that's exactly what is happening. If you take, and even
Yes,
with a grain of
I agree.
salt, the assessment that they're going to run out of soldiers, the Avdiivka death toll is just unfathomable on those elements. And again, considering the attention that Israel and Gaza is getting in this particular instance, and then the Russians, apropos of nothing, have slaughtered 370,000 of their own people. They're going to hit 500,000 by summer, if they even have them. That's the question. And you could argue that part of the reason it's a sign that our support of Ukraine is actually working, and our support of our allies' support of them is actually working, that they are having to try and find these needle points outside where they are literally negotiating with Iran and saying, set Hamas off the chain right now. We know it's just a matter of when, not if. Tell them to go ahead and we'll supply you with, in exchange. Like, they'll make financial deals with these folks.
There's proof proof this week that the DPRK, we've got missiles coming in from the DPRK and North Korean missiles are definitely here. I hear all of this, but it's so disheartening in some ways. Well, not disheartening, but I mean, the fact that the Brits are the ones who are now the largest contributors financially to Ukraine in this entire war. In one go is
one direct payment,
because
the
I know,
US,
I know all the caveats. All the caveats. I'm just saying.
Well, again, I think that backs up my idea that they are filling in the gap, that they are rushing to fill in that side. Let's grab a couple more questions before we run out of time.
It also ticks me off it also ticks me off with the GOP using it, domestic politics.
Absolutely.
Ukrainians die every day, and it's the GOP doesn't care. Anyhow, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah.
All right, so this is from Andrea, and it kind of jumped in the middle of a conversation that we were having earlier, where she asked, "Could it be stealth fighter jets?" ? Explains why we aren't seeing what is taking them down in the sky. So that applies to something.
It would be an F-35. Is our stealth fighter. And we're not going to give them stealth. We're not giving them stealth fighters. I really do think what it is well,
that would be us shooting stuff down This would not be gear we would give to the Ukrainians.
Yes. Also, this is not gear we would give to the Ukrainians, and it's not
We're
gear
not.
that we would.
We're not fighting in that zone.
We would not put Ukrainian pilots in those vehicles. We would that is U.S. only. But I don't know. I don't know for sure. And I'm sure there are some, military wonk guys who all they do is just read Jane's, Armor Unlimited, and digest every spec and everything. But I definitely think this could be F-16s. And part of the reason why the Ukrainians were so eager to get F-16s is because you can engage with Russian troops and air assets before they even know you're there. And that fits this kind of profile. So I think it could be F-16s, but it could be some other, system that I'm not aware of. I am not a military kind of like every little bit and piece. But
there's one last question that I do want to squeeze in here.
Quick one
from Gino. How can Russia afford to maintain over 3,000 nuclear missiles?
They can't.
Yeah.
Can't.
Yeah.
They can't. And we should be worried about that. We really should.
Yeah.
Because the maintenance is a big part of it. The sale, security, all the rest of it. And they've pulled out of every major arms treaty that we have with them. So we should be concerned about that. And we should be concerned about the potential disintegration of the Russian Federation.
That's right. But, turning into Moscovia, which is now it's being called all over online. I'm hearing people refer to Russia now as Moscovia, which
it should be.
Yeah, which is really curious. We're almost out of time. I want to remind everybody, check out Philip Ittner's vlogs on his YouTube channel. And, of course, follow Johnny Million. It's Johnny Million on YouTube and Twitch. And, of course, thank you guys for being here. Like, subscribe, give a thumbs up, support the show. Next Saturday, Sexy Liberal San Francisco, as we kick off the election year tour of Sexy Liberal with me, Stephanie Miller, John Fugelsang, and Frangela. Yeah. It's going to be a great time.
That's my hometown, man. I can give you all sorts of recommendations.
Oh, I already know.
Tommy's go to Tommy's Mexican restaurant.
My two favorite Chinese restaurants are there. Summer and I go every time. Yang Sing, which is for dim sum, and then of course House of Nanking, which is
And if you were a drinking man, I'd say go to the top of the Mark in the Mark Hopkins Hotel. But I'd say go anyhow and just have a tea or a non-alcoholic because the
great
view is
idea.
Amazing. Have fun in San Francisco.
Thank you so much. It'll be colder than Iowa. So anyways, go ahead, Nikki Haley. Win Iowa so that we don't have to worry about any of you. Cheers. Thanks so much. We'll see you guys next week. Thank you, Chicago. We'll see you soon. Stay warm. Excellent.
Yeah, no, San Francisco. Go down. You a fan of Mexican like taquerias?
Of course. Who isn't?
Go down to 17th and Valencia. Go to either Pancho Villa or El Toro with those enormous San Francisco burritos. Yummy,
right.
yummy.
Well,
yummy.
we go to the Haight and get a crepe, and then we go have dim sum, and then that's usually how much time we have. But I will
Great
take.
city.
You feel free to text me a list of places. I'm
Yeah,
for it.
I will.
Yeah. Secondarily, Johnny Million, we love you. Go take care of business. I know she turned your light off, so you got someplace to be, and as do I.
I do.
I got I think
As do I actually as well.
Yes, exactly. So take care of yourself, be safe, and I will talk
All right,
to you
guys.
guys later on.
Love you guys.
Cheers.
See you on
hold
Wednesday.
I'll
All right,
let you go.
guys. Take care. Bye.
There you go.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Okay, there they go. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you guys so much for joining us. Ladies and gentlemen. There you are. There's the chat room. Hi. Hold on. Let me get you up in there. Thank you guys so much. I've got to run as well. I hope it's always interesting when I'm doing the live stream and I'm dealing with the time constraints of radio and going to commercial and all that kind of stuff that I'm even more acutely aware of the complexity of the issues we're discussing and how quickly we have to kind of address certain things and bat them around so that there's any like clarifications and that kind of stuff. It's always, I like that it kind of haunts me the rest of the day. I'm like, was that clear? Does that make sense? So hopefully most of the points we were addressing today, they were comprehensive enough where people weren't like left baffled by any particular thought. So it has nothing to do with you. It's just something I think about. This is what just like rides on my shoulder all the time. Thank you guys, and thanks so much for the support. Thanks for all the thumbs up. We're moving up in numbers really fast right now, which is shocking and fun and great and the like. And I appreciate you guys. And I want to thank the trolls and maggots who've been with us all week. They've helped us add like 500 subs, not because they're subbing, but because again, I don't know why the algorithm likes people who hate you more than it likes people who like you. It's a very weird thing. I'm talking to you, Facebook. But either way, in the interim, please think about doing that. Let me see if I can get here it is. Just remember, hold on, I'll transition to this. Don't forget, 100K, that's our goal. 100,000 on YouTube, and then of course 1,000 on Twitch. If you're there, please subscribe. If you have Amazon Prime, it doesn't cost you a dime. And then that's all I'm gonna say today. I can't all the time just try to talk about it. It's like it's embarrassing. I don't like it. I'm gonna have to get Dave Hill. Maybe I can get a cameo of Dave Hill and make him just do all my. That's what I'll do. I'm gonna make Dave Hill do my sales pitch. It's a great idea. I'm a genius.
Even outside, it's packed